Director Yearwood,
Here.
Director Reyes, Secretary Lineback,
Here.
Vice Chair Sloan, and Chair Danzel.
Here. Thank you. Board disclosures on action items. Do I hear any? Hearing none, let's move on to agenda item B, comments by public on non-agenda items.
Thank you. Members of the public may address the board on district topics not listed on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. It is a violation of state law for the board to discuss or take action on non-agenda items. Board members may only briefly ask clarifying questions or refer the matter to staff. And I do not have any speaker cards at this time.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. Let's move on to item C, consent calendar.
Thank you, Chair Danzel. Consent calendar items are considered administratively routine and will be acted upon in one motion unless separate action on a specific item is necessary. The chairperson will consider any request for discussion on the items prior to approval of the consent calendar. And this evening, we have 5 items for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we still need, do you still read the items, correct, or we just, it has been a while. Do we need to read them, or can we just go off of the?
Go on with the vote.
Okay.
Like,
Do I hear any items that need to be pulled by public? Do I hear any by staff? Any by board? Hearing none.
I don't actually want an item pulled, but just a brief explanation on the quarterly claims report.
Yes, Secretary.
Yes, regarding, I'm trying to find it on my, and I can't. So, give me a quick second here. I'm not quite sure where it is on the claims report, but it's regarding a $15,000 payment to the county treasurer, tax controller. If just a brief explanation of that.
Yeah, McIntyre, Finance Manager. I can speak to that. So usually, you're right, we get money from the assessment division at the county Sacramento Treasury, Department of Finance. But we are, as an entity, exempt from property tax. When you get a property tax bill, you have to pay all the taxes on it. And the property tax portion we are exempt from, but any assessments on our parcels that we have to still pay that fee. And so we have 59 parcels, that 59 tax bills that we get, and we just pay the full amount. So we could split it up into 7,500 or so and pay it now and then the other 7,500 later. But it's a small enough amount, so we just pay that full 15,000. But it's for the assessment fees, and some of them are our fees.
I was going to say, do we
Yeah.
assess our own
So we pay
fees to
ourselves,
ourselves?
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have to pay them for collecting our
We
own
do.
fees?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a different fee, different line item.
I think you can ask your tax engineers not to put the assessment, our assessment on our own property lots.
Our tax engineer?
Yeah, because they're the ones that give the file, right, to the county about who has to pay the assessment.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
So just tell them not to
Add ours.
add our assessments to our lots, and at least you might pay them a little less in fees.
That's true. Otherwise, we're just transferring money back and forth. Yeah. That's what that's for.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on consent calendar? Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
I'll move that we accept the consent calendar C1 through C5 as provided by staff.
I have a motion by Director Reyes. Do I hear a second?
Second. Forward.
Secretary Lineback? Roll call vote.
Director Yearwood,
Aye.
Director Reyes,
Aye.
Secretary Lineback,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sloan, and Chair Danzel.
Aye. Thank you. Let's move on to item D, presentations.
Thank you. Item D1 is recognition of Golden State Water Company for donation to the Hideout Teen Center and after-school program. And I'd like to welcome to the podium Interim Recreation Superintendent Brandy Dion.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Directors. At this time, I would like to welcome Sean Twilla from the Golden State Water Company up to thank him for his generous contribution to the Hideout after-school program. Since I've been here, this is, I believe, the second or third year that he's provided a donation to support the after-school program. So we're very grateful for their generosity. Sean?
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, directors and board members. On behalf of Golden State Water Company, I want to thank all of you, the Park District, for the opportunity for Golden State Water Company to invest in our community. These business relationships that we have developed over the years are beneficial not only to our party and your entity, but the children and the community at large. So thank you very much for this continued opportunity. We look forward to the future, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Where's the check, Sean? No check?
It's in the mail.
Okay, all right.
Great. Thank you very much to Golden State Water Company and Sean for continuing to support our youth here at Cordova Recreation and Park District. Item E, community reports.
Thank you. Item E1 is a standing committee report, Budget and Finance, from January 29th, 2020.
Director Reyes, Secretary Lambaugh, who would like to start?
I can start if you'd like.
Director Reyes.
Basically, we do have the agenda in our packet, if I'm not mistaken here. We were able to, the discussion items had 5, but we had to table C2 because we didn't have the audit draft available at that time. We worked well with staff and were able to give them comments and feedback as to how certain items would be reflected. And if I'm not mistaken, when I read Finance Manager's report, he did put some of them, the caveat there, which was really good, to explain what we had discussed. So it would be easier for the public and our board members to understand and not to get confused by plain and simple, items that move from one to the other, and it really does not affect the budget. And then, let me see. And so we also worked on the philosophies, and our finance manager and our general manager, we discussed the different finance philosophies, and hopefully what will happen in our workshop when we work on policies, et cetera, that we can include them in our policies.
Yeah, I would add that, one of them will be, a strong reserve policy as part of the philosophy of building the budget. As you know, we covered the Villages of Zinfandel streetscapes issue at our board retreat, so we didn't spend much time on that at all. And then the salary scale adjustments, which are, in your packets. I would like to add that, there was some discussion about how the salaries of the staff have fallen below the levels that for comparable agencies, and we feel that one of the reasons that has happened is that there hasn't been a regular COLA built into each and every budget, that COLAs were sort of stopped during the hard times and became a special request when things improved. And we felt that the board, should support the idea of the default position being a COLA and only not having a COLA in a given budget year if the finances, simply can't support it. So that was, a philosophy that we asked the finance team and the general manager to build into the way they look at budgeting, because of course there's inflation for everything. There's inflation for your maintenance supplies and recreation supplies and things like that. And your employees also suffer the effects of inflation and should have the capacity to at least stay level with where the economy is, so.
Thank you very much to that committee. Let's go on to item F, public hearings. Seeing none, we'll move on to item G, regular calendar.
Thank you, Chair Danzel. Item G1 is to adopt Resolution 19/20-32, amending the full-time and part-time salary and hourly rate scales as required by California Code of Regulations, Section 570.5. And I'd like to welcome to the podium Human Resource Manager Andrea White.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Danzel, Board of Directors. I'd like to talk about these amendments that I've brought forward today, and there's a few of them, so we have some to talk about. I would like to talk about these a little bit out of order that I have them in our analysis, and talk about why we always bring these, and as you know, every year, mostly because of the part-time wage scale requirement. We are required by the state of California to increase our minimum wage, and we need to be compliant with that. And so right now, everyone who is under the minimum wage was brought to minimum wage. And then we wanted to speak to the Budget and Finance Committee about some other changes, and then bring the amendment to the scale today. So with that, just on the part-time scale, I'd like to talk to you about the philosophy. Every other year, we either move up the entire scale, or we bring up just the lower paid half positions to meet the requirement of the minimum wage increase. So last year we moved up the entire scale, and this year we brought up the first half, and that's from the preschool assistant through the lifeguard's position. Those all moved up. That means there's a little bit of compaction between those lowest paid individuals and the higher paid individuals on the scale. We will, if this is approved and adopted, we will make some additional changes to make sure that someone who's been here many years makes at least a little bit more than someone who's brand new. They don't all get put back on the first step. There's still a little bit of difference between a seasoned part-time employee and a brand new employee. So with that increase, of course, we then also look at our full-time scale. Something that we talked about and want to bring forward is the lowest paid full-time positions that we have at the district. That is listed in the analysis. It's account clerk 1, park maintenance worker 1, admin assistant, rec coordinator, account clerk 2, park maintenance worker 2, and recreation coordinator. The compaction between the part-time, their wage rate, and the full-time was starting to get very close. And we had not amended those salaries other than the couple of COLAs we've had over the last 10 years. They've not been reviewed or looked at or benchmarked against other agencies. So we did that and found that, of course, some agencies, some certain cities pay a lot more and some pay very similar, but on average, taking the outliers out, we were finding ourselves being one of the lowest paid agencies for those positions. And so we would like to move those up a little bit by 2%. We also consider the fact that those positions need to have a certain percentage between themselves and the supervisor. So we don't want the supervisor to only make 5% more or couple percent more than a park maintenance worker. And we determined that there was still enough of a difference between the two positions. There was a 15% change before, and now it'll be a 13% difference between the lowest paid supervisor and the highest paid worker in this level. So we'd like to bring that forward, just make some adjustments. Yes, we love the idea of a COLA, but do some course correcting is what we're talking about here. So moving on to the planning department. So we are looking at our planning department to make sure that it's comparable. We ask a lot of our planning department. We have a lot of development. So we did do some benchmarking, initially started with the construction inspector supervisor. Often those are compared to agencies that are larger because small park districts don't have the needs that we do. And we found for the construction inspector supervisor that, on average, the position's paid 15% higher. I would like to note that even if we do amend this and we move that position to the next scale, that doesn't mean that that person who happens to sit in that seat gets a 13% raise. It just means the whole scale moves up. They may move to the closest salary that they're currently making. So I think that's important to note. That doesn't mean it's an automatic 13. It's just the scale difference between the two scales is 13%. And since we recently updated landscape architect, now we're looking at construction inspector supervisor. We of course needed to also include the park planning and development manager. With benchmarking that position, the range was about 35%. We were about 35% less than other agencies. We'd like to create a new scale and move that up and create a scale 12, which is a 33% increase. Like I said, that doesn't mean a person gets a 33% raise, but the difference between the two scales is that. The final thing that's not in the report that I'd like to mention is that the planning department, the full-time, also has a cost recovery component. We do have an ordinance that we can charge the billable hours for planning at the base is 3 times the amount of their salary. So there is a cost recovery component to consider. It's not necessarily that the reason for doing this, but it is something to note as far as the fiscal impact. So with these increases, you'll see in the fiscal impact, it's about 29,000 with the proposed changes. Oh, I'm sorry, of course we had to amend the scale to include the changes to the general manager's salary. That was agreed upon over a year ago, but it still has to be posted on there. So anyways, the fiscal impact is noted here, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions by the board? Director, you're on.
I must have scrolled over this when I was reviewing this the other day. I thought, please correct me, I thought when we negotiated the salary, 3-year salary, I believe, for the general manager, I thought the subsequent increases were 6%. Am I mistaken? Yes. I thought they were 7.
They were 7.
Oh, okay, all right.
Any other questions, Director?
Nope.
Secretary Lambach?
Yes, so I'm sorry these questions didn't occur to me earlier, but so the increase of 29,000 and 15,000 for full and part-time are for the period of what?
For the rest
March
of
1st to June 30, or, I mean,
that's correct. That is proposed for the rest of the fiscal year.
yeah, okay. So it would have a heavier impact on next year's budget.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. And are you, I know you've talked about this, of course, so I know you've considered it, but are there any immediate plans for conducting a full salary scale survey?
Yes, I will be requesting in the budget a salary survey, a salary and benefit survey for the new fiscal year budget. Whether or not that's something we feel like we can do this year, because not only do we have to consider the cost of the survey, but we also have to consider the results and how are we ready to implement those results, and how do we strategically implement those results. And so that's something that we've talked about quite a bit, but I will be requesting it again this year.
Yeah, and we know the district is growing, that there's a lot of development going on and a lot of extra work, but also extra homes being taxed to support these increases. Just feel like we need to keep a really close eye on it, though.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Director Reyes?
I just wanted to comment, piggybacking on what Director Lineback had said. Our planning department and our planning manager, the whole team, is not, I wouldn't think that most park districts of our size, well, we're getting bigger and bigger, would have that because we are building. You know, we have to build parks and all this. And so the expertise that we have to really invest in is the expertise that's going to work with developers, work with newness. It's not a situation where it's park maintenance only. And so I understand the need to stay, kind of competitive in some sense. So I understand and I support it.
Thank you, Director Reyes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Sloan, do you have any? No. Okay, I don't have any at this time, so do I hear a motion?
I'll move that the Board of Directors adopt Resolution 19/20-32, amending the full-time and part-time salary and hourly rate scales as required by California Code of Regulations, Section 570.5.
I have a motion by Director Reyes. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Director Yearwood. Roll call vote.
Director Yearwood,
Aye.
Director Reyes,
Aye.
Secretary Lineback,
I,
Vice Chair Sloan, and Chair Danzel.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Let's move on to item H, Board of Directors items.
Thank you. Item H1. Item A is training. There was none over the past period, so we'll move on to H1B, which is board member reports.
Thank you. We'll start with Director Yearwood.
Allow me to scroll to that page. No. Well, the only thing I have to report on is the special board retreat, or annual board retreat on January 27th. As usual, it's a nice time to get together and talk about things, and we got our new iPads to get kind of into the century, and that was nice. And then it was great to hear from our finance manager about the plans for addressing the deficiencies in the villages of Zinfandel. And then also looking over what kind of our plans are for 2020. And I mean, I ain't gonna lie, the pool's the only thing I'm excited about. Well, I'm excited about a lot of things, but I'm excited to see the pool project get going. So that's all I got to say.
Great. Thank you, Director Yearwood. And actually, at this time, we're going to take a 5-minute quick recess. Okay, at a 6:54.
Thank you.
I'm going to reconvene this meeting at 6:56 PM. And we will go back to board room reports and with Director Reyes.
Ditto with what Director Yearwood had said. It was a good annual board retreat. It's always a good time when we, as board members, can get together and we can listen to the same, give our comments. I think I really look forward to it. And the iPad technology is something I'm working on. And, and hearing about some ideas for workshops, for policy, bringing back together our policy. I thought that was really very good. And most especially, the discussion on how we were to address the streetscapes at VOZ, because that's been a recurring concern. All right? So that's one. The second thing was I did get to enjoy, I went ahead and I attended the PMRID. And it's a good working group. Don Childs was not there, he was absent, but I was able to witness the election of a new chair. And so I can report. The new chair is Ryan Brown, and Bonnie Domini, who used to be the chair, is a vice chair in this respect. They are working very well with staff, and I thought it was really neat to see all of them very connected this time, right, Sandy? And all of them really working well. This is a good functioning PMRID team, and I think staff is enjoying it very much. So I enjoyed the meeting. Thank you.
Director Reyes. Secretary Linebaugh.
Yes, I attended the tree planting event at Rosemont Community Park. It was in conjunction with the Sacramento Tree Foundation, the RCA. And wow, they had a lot of people out there planting trees. It was kind of fabulous to see. I didn't count, but somewhere between 25 and 30 people showed up to plant trees. It was really excellent. And I guess unfortunately, they had to dig their own holes because the ground was too soft for the equipment. They thought it would tear up the turf if they put the tractor out there. So, but everybody just dug holes and put trees in them. So they were, I think, excited about doing something positive for the community. There were people there with their children, teaching them, responsibility, for their community. It was really excellent. Again, I attended the annual board retreat with my fellow board members, and I don't have anything unique to say about it, so I'll just let it suffice to say that it is good to get together with a board retreat annually, and it helps us keep a good working relationship amongst ourselves as board members. And then lastly, I attended the Rosemont Community Association meeting. They had a lot going on, so the report from me was brief, but they understood that the presentation to them will probably be April, and they were grateful for that because apparently they also have a really squished March agenda, tons of stuff on it. And that's my report.
Thank you, Secretary Linebaugh. Vice Chair Sloan.
Well, I'm going to repeat everything that everybody just said about the Rosemont tree planting. I was there also. I took photographs, and it was a little bit larger crowd than we had over at the Brecca tree planting thing. There was more trees. I think there was 24 trees, and we only had 18. But there was a lot of enthusiastic people, and weather was perfect. I must say, it was just very nice. And on the 27th, I was also at that retreat, and I did get one of these things, and it's still kind of new to me because that's why I left my stuff in the car, is because I'm now carrying something else that I'm not used to, and this would not fit in there. So I need some type of a case that I can put papers in and my iPad. Technology is, I know I have to get there, but it's just something that I still read a newspaper. I'm sorry. I'm the one guy who still likes to read a newspaper. And on the 2nd of February, on the 4th of February, I attended the Rancho Cordova Athletic Association meeting. A lot of things are happening in the city. Sports field renovation projects are well underway, and one that's going to be coming to one of our fields is temporary shade structures for the Rosemont Little League. They're going to be putting those up. I guess they'll be talking to you guys about that. I'm not sure, but that's one thing. Josh Gruber is still on track for the cross-country at Dave Roberts. He has had some meetings with the Park District, and so that's still something that I'm looking forward to. There seems to be a lack of coaches in the region. In fact, last year the soccer group, Rancho Cordova Soccer, had to turn away 200 kids because they didn't have enough coaches for the teams that they were going to put together. So that's something we should think about, something we can do. I don't know, some type of workshops where we can create more interest. Coaches, they don't get paid, but it's important that we somehow get that thing going, or something steps up, some type of a program. I guess could be, this Saturday, if you like, rugby over up there by Cordova High on the field there. It's going to have a rugby, the kickoff tournament this weekend. It's Saturday and Sunday. And there might be, I don't know if it's Friday, but my son's now an EMT, and he's assigned to a medic ambulance, and he's going to be doing one of these tournaments, a rugby tournament. So that's it.
Thank you, Vice Chair Son. For myself, I also did attend the special board meeting, our annual retreat. Like everybody else has said, I'll just mirror that. It's always good to get together. General Manager and I are actually talking about having a mid-year just to make sure that we stay focused, especially with pool coming this year and, starting that project to make sure, like we talked about the VOZ, just making sure we're on track with all our projects and where we need to continue. It is good to get together, the board, and talk. The public is definitely welcome to come to those meetings, but it's always nice to, be able to sit and talk freely about what's going on and not in such a public setting as this one where it is a lot more formal. Other than that, I do not have anything else at this time. So let's move on to item H2.
Thank you. Item H2A is to nominate a member of the Board of Directors to serve on the Sacramento-LAFCO Special District Advisory Committee, Office A, for a 2-year unpaid term, and adopt Resolution 19/20-33 supporting the nomination. So as you know, the advisory committee is comprised of 17 members from various districts. Currently, for seat A, there are 7 available seats. Members serve for a 2-year uncompensated term. Committee meetings are held quarterly on the 5th Tuesday or as needed. Currently, Director Yearwood was serving on the seat for the past 2 years. And if the board desires to make a nomination, the nominee would be required to submit a resume, and that would be due by February 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. Do I hear anyone stepping up for this position? I know I've served on it. Vice Chair Sloan's, Director Yearwood, I believe, Director Reyes, you've served on it also. I know you have other things going, other committees that you're on. Secretary Linebaugh, any interest? Yeah, I know she's got, but I'm asking if is there any interest by the board to serve on this committee?
Yeah.
You would
I'd
like
do
to
it.
serve on this committee? Okay.
But I don't think I should nominate myself.
No, that's
Oh,
fine.
I'll do that for you, don't worry. Let me find that on here.
Page 45.
There we go. All right, I move the Board of Directors nominate, do I say Director or you're just, I'm sorry, you're Secretary Linebaugh, to serve on the Sacramento LAFCO Special District Advisory Committee, SDAC, Office A, for a 2-year unpaid term ending December 31st, 2021, and adopt Resolution 19/20-33 supporting the nomination.
Second.
I have a motion by Director Yearwood. I have a second by Director Reyes. Roll call vote.
Director Yearwood,
Aye.
Director Reyes,
Aye.
Secretary Lineback,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sloan,
Aye.
and Chair Danzel.
Aye. Thank you, folks. Let's move on to item I. Comments by staff on non-agenda items.
Thank you, Chair Danzel. Item I-1 is the district-wide monthly progress report for February, and I'll turn it over to General Manager Larkin.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. Some highlights for the month. Finance Manager and myself have worked with the cell tower company to figure out some cell tower opportunities in some of our parks. So we have a proposal on the table. We've gone through a couple of the site tours as to where their interest lies. We're working with the City of Rancho Cordova staff on those proposals. So at this point, we're still trying to figure out the nuances of the deal that we're looking at possibly striking with them. So in the future, we may be presenting a cell tower proposal. At this time, it's looking at 3 potential sites that they're interested in, but we want to vet through the process with the city before we bring it to the board. So it possibly will come to a future board meeting for discussion. Also, we are doing very well with our new Cordova Recreation and Park Foundation. The name officially changed through the Secretary of State this last month, so we're happy about that. The foundation also approved their bylaws and amendments to their articles of incorporation. We're looking forward to the president of that foundation coming to a future board meeting to discuss the changes that the foundation has made and the directions to which they're looking at doing some fundraising opportunities. They had a great brainstorming session at the last meeting, and they have some pretty good ideas as to how they want to launch their new brand and their new place in the community. So I'm excited about that. We also met with the consultants from Goodwin and Associates to talk about an update to our Nexus study for park development. So we downloaded them all of the information related to the ongoing negotiations we've had with the county and the BIA. They'll be looking to reflect some of those negotiations in an update to the Nexus study. The draft is expected within the next month or so. Yep, and so after that point, staff will review it to make sure that we're capturing all that we're working on at this point. Then it'll come forward to the board as an update for the Nexus study for us to go on with negotiations with the county and the BIA to hopefully solidify the fees associated with park development going forward. So that's a nice move forward with that.
Chair Danzel, may I
Yes, ma'am.
ask a question here? I just wanted to check the Nexus study that you're working on. Is this going for park development fees, right?
Correct.
Is this going to encompass the city of Rancho Cordova or just the county right now?
The update is specific to the county of Sacramento.
Okay.
The nuance is that we needed to separate out the two like we've discussed, and we need to have that reflected in the Nexus study. But with that separation comes nuances with that change that we want to make sure that we're reflecting in the update.
Okay, great. So it's county. Okay, thank you.
Mostly focusing on the county updates.
Thank you.
The 2020 census kiosk location will be at the Neil Orchard Senior Activity Center. We established a kiosk for the 2020 census for people to go in and go online. The district is providing that resource for the community in collaboration with the census folks. And so I appreciate the Senior Center hosting that to get that important data for all of us. We had our management retreat. Thank you for your participation in that. I thought it was very successful as well. To note, in the Finance and Budget Division, we have spending overall is at 48% of the budget with a January target of 44% or greater. That is a negative 3% decrease compared to previous months, but still positive within the budget. So we're doing quite well with maintaining a very strong budget for this fiscal year. So far, so good. We talked a little bit earlier about the tax and the revenue associated with that. And The fiscal year 2020-21 budget kickoff meeting occurred. Matt did an amazing job with creating a worksheet for the staff to work on. He's calling it the BMW, the Budget Management Worksheet. It's a 7 series, so it's a pretty amazing vehicle for the staff to be able to input their information. And Matt just wows me with his technological ways of getting the information simple and clear and kind of fun. So thank you, Matt. The Recreation Superintendent position recruitment closed on February 9th, and actually interviews were hosted today, and they will be moving forward with that process. The grants associated with park planning and development, we have a lot of things still pending out there. The biggest one is that Prop 68 money that we're waiting to hear from the state as to when that money will be allocated. We finished responding to Prop 68 information related to the per capita grant, which is approximately a $250,000 ask, and we had to answer some questions to them in order for us to be eligible, and we completed that, and I believe it was shipped out today for their consideration, and we're waiting to hear on that. So that's pretty exciting. And other things, Fettersville building is down. And so if you've been by there, it is flat and it has a fence around it. And John Biondo has done a fantastic job organizing it. We were able to knock it down in a time when the kids were not in school, so the traffic impact was minimized. The building itself came down in, I believe, a day, so it was successfully landed. So I would encourage you to go by Fettersville and see what it looks like. It's a very big difference.
Yeah.
Ironically, it just looks really clean. I've gotten some really good feedback from the residents in that area. They've called me and thanked me profusely, so I appreciate that feedback. So yeah, I'm excited for us to be able to re-landscape that, add some irrigation, and continue the sidewalks in that particular park. I think the residents are very pleased with that project being going as fast as it has. So kudos to John especially for driving that so seamlessly. We're also looking at adding administrative offices to the upstairs to include 2 additional offices, one for the Parks and Recreation Director, and then one to house the Park Planning and Development staff. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jill for the Parks and Recreation Department report.
Good evening. A little update at the Cordova Golf Course. Claim Steak Brewing is working on their improvements to the restaurant. Unfortunately, there will not be a March 1st opening like we had hoped for. They are still working on their improvements. They're still working on getting their ABC license. So they've got a couple of hoops that they need to jump through. So we're hoping to be, up and running by May 1st, but I'll keep you updated along the way with any updates that I get from Claim Steak. But we're super excited still to have them on board. We can't wait for them to open and just, be there for our participants and for our golfers. So we're excited about that. You can't look in. They've shaded out the windows, so you can't look in to see what their improvements are, but I can guarantee you they're pretty awesome. So
I just wait until they open the doors, the workers walk in and out and go look. My question for that is because we gave them a leeway of no rent and things till March 1st. Are we extending that till May 1st? Or are we making them pay? Or are we extending it on the back end and saying you're here for 2 extra months?
nope, they owe us a payment of $1,000 on March 1st.
Perfect, thank you.
You bet. So the golf course is moving along. It's spring season. So we're hoping with all the new improvements, golfers will come out, play some golf at the golf course. And again, just getting the restaurant up and running it's huge for us. So we're really hoping that Claim Steak can get in there before that May 1st start. Okay. The Neil Orchard Senior Activity Center. So the Cordova Senior Advisory Board came through again for us, and they were able to get a $3,000 grant through the Sac County Department of DOT. And what they're going to use that $3,000 for is to replace those lobby chairs. So that's really exciting. I mean, that senior advisory board, they're just amazing, and we really appreciate all they do for the, for the center. So I spoke with Heather today. They're in the process of getting all the paperwork completed, so we should see probably new chairs in there, let's say May or June. She's picked out some chairs for them to take a look at and approve, and then we'll move forward with ordering those. So super excited for the senior center, and appreciate everyone's hard work on making it a better place for the seniors to be able to sit down and enjoy their space. At the Hideout, a new program that we have at the Hideout is that Richard Munoz from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife introduced a new partnership between his department and the Hideout, which will allow the opportunity for teens to raise steelhead trout fish eggs, which is pretty exciting. I love this program. So teens will be responsible for checking water temperature, pH levels, care and feeding of the fish, as well as cleaning their environment. And then once the eggs have hatched, Richard will lead the release into the river. So just another opportunity for those kids at the Hideout to learn something new and get out in nature. And that's what it's all about. So we appreciate that. So great job at the Hideout with that staff member. And then the last thing I just want to highlight, as Secretary Linebacker already mentioned, that we did have the Rosemont Park tree planting. It was in conjunction with the Sac Tree Foundation and the Rosemont Community Association, and of course our Parks Department. And they planted 24 new trees throughout the park and added 20 yards of mulch to the butterfly garden. So again, another collaboration that is just so helpful to our parks to make them beautiful. So that's it. That wraps up my report.
Thank you.
Chair Denzel, I just wanted to ask about the graffiti in our district parks. Just wanted to see, is it, I see you've noted it here that you've been working on, and it includes pavilions, pathways, and walls. Do you see it getting more, or, is this a normal amount of graffiti that just happens every time?
Yeah, it's something the parks crew continues to just handle on pretty much a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis. I don't think there's an uptick at this point. It's just, sometimes it
part of
happens.
life.
Yeah, and so as soon as we see it or it's reported to us, we make sure that we go out and clean it up just as soon as we possibly can.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to item J, informational items. Clerk Jones.
Thank you. Item J1 is articles, correspondence, and public outreach. We have the minutes copy from the PMRID Oversight Committee from November 5th, 2019, and one article, and then your calendar is there.
Thank you. Any additions need to be made to that calendar that anybody can think of at this time? Thank you. Let's move on to item K. Item K is a very special item tonight. It's adjournment.
I was about to say, Kay.
Okay, we're there,
It's an
folks.
adjournment.
We're there. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting till the next regular board meeting of the Cordova Recreation Park District Board of Directors till Wednesday, March 18th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Thank
Good evening,
you.
folks.
Good evening.